Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. What is a vehicle from a tissue procurement company linked to the University of Pittsburgh doing outside a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic with coolers, especially after the university swore under oath that it does not harvest fetal organs from Planned Parenthood? That's what David Daleiden, investigative journalist and president of the Center for Medical Progress, wants to know. After those images were captured by a pro-life advocate with the organization 40 Days for Life in Pittsburgh. We'll talk to the woman who took the video in just a moment, but for now, we have David Daleiden on the line. David, thanks for being here tonight.
Hey, Kara, wonderful to be with you.
Great. So as you note, the University of Pittsburgh swore under oath that it does not harvest fetal organs from Planned Parenthood. So can you catch our viewers up to speed as to why the university was made to go under oath in the first place and kind of the context for the scene that we're seeing?
Sure. So let me set it up for you. About a year ago, last year in May, the University of Pittsburgh was called to testify under oath at a legislative hearing that the Pennsylvania House of Representatives Health Committee was having in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I testified under oath at that hearing as well about my findings so far in Center for Medical Progress's investigative research and investigative reporting about fetal experimentation sponsored by taxpayers, sponsored by the federal government, that's been happening at the University of Pittsburgh for decades at this point. At that hearing, the University of Pittsburgh's representative swore under oath, swore to tell the truth, and testified that the University of Pittsburgh was not harvesting aborted fetuses from Planned Parenthood in downtown Pittsburgh. Now, just last week, witnesses and advocates outside of the Planned Parenthood abortion clinic in downtown Pittsburgh photographed and videotaped a University of Pittsburgh linked organ harvesting company, CORE, parked in the front driveway of the Planned Parenthood abortion clinic with the CORE representative carrying out specimen bags containing specimen tubes and storing them in a cooler in the back of the CORE vehicle. So this is a huge question. If they're not harvesting aborted fetal organs at the Planned Parenthood abortion clinic in Pittsburgh, what is Pitt's organ harvesting company doing parked in the driveway with coolers?
And when we talk about these experiments, I mean, these are very gruesome experiments. They were almost Frankenstein-esque. We're talking these aborted babies. Sometimes their scalps were being taken and were being transplanted onto lab mice. Can you explain for us some of the experimentation going on? And like you said, I think it was under Fauci that some of this taxpayer money was going to them.
Exactly. It looks clear that the University of Pittsburgh lied under oath at the legislative hearing in Pennsylvania a year ago. So then the next question is, why did they feel the need to lie? Well, probably because the University of Pittsburgh has been the hub for some of the most barbaric experiments being done on aborted children, sponsored by the federal government, paid for with taxpayer dollars for decades. And just a few examples of these, as you mentioned, the infamous scalping study, where the scalps of aborted babies, by the way, intact scalps, so the skulls, the heads of the babies would have to be intact when they were ripped out of the womb and then scalped for this organ harvesting experiment where Pitt scientists took the scalps, stitched them onto lab rats to keep them growing to do different kinds of drug testing on. This was funded by a grant from Dr. Fauci's agency at the NIH, the NIAID. It was funded by multiple grants from the NIH. That's just one recent example of the barbaric fetal experimentation at the University of Pittsburgh. Another one was a deal going on for a couple of years where the University of Pittsburgh was receiving millions of dollars from the NIH in exchange for supplying the most pristine, intact fetal kidneys to a special NIH program called the Good Map Project. In their grant application to the NIH advertising why Pitt should get these millions of dollars in taxpayer funding grant awards, the University of Pittsburgh promised that they would take steps to record and track the exact time that circulation, that blood flow was lost to the fetal kidneys, and that they would take steps to keep that loss of blood flow, the ischemic time, to a minimum. And they said that they would be doing this using labor induction abortion. So if you put all those together, in plain language, what the University of Pittsburgh was advertising to the NIH to get millions of dollars in taxpayer funding was that they were going to deliver these children alive and then kill them by cutting their kidneys out for experimentation. So that's why the University of Pittsburgh probably feels like they have to lie under oath even to avoid telling the truth about the grotesque and barbaric experiments that they've been conducting on aborted children in direct partnership with Planned Parenthood in Pennsylvania.
Almost incredible and crazy that we are even having this discussion. Like, so what are we? It's a Thursday night, I think. Just on a Thursday night, yeah, you know, they kept those babies alive as long as possible to then harvest their organs. I mean, it's absolutely grotesque. And the fact that, you know, we'll talk about this, but it won't be, you know, national leading headlines tomorrow, I think is a really sad indictment right now of where we are, especially in a culture that pretends to care so much about, you know, tolerance and love and acceptance and all these, you know, great fun things. And then you see what we're sitting on top of is the corpses of so many children. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but were there also racial quotas? I think I remember that from some of the original reportings, racial quotas and I think gender quotas for some of the fetuses that they were looking for.
Yes, the University of Pittsburgh in the Good Map program had racial quotas for the number of Black babies and the number of Hispanic babies and the number of Black women and Hispanic women who had to be harvested from for this program. It is one of the most disturbing stories that I've ever reported on. And it's an outrage and an indictment to the current state of our civilization that the establishment media does not want to touch this story, that powerful political interests, powerful special interests like Planned Parenthood, sponsored by forces even as high as the White House with Kamala Harris and the Biden-Harris administration, have weaponized law enforcement to try to silence me and silence my team. As we see Merrick Garland at the DOJ right now going after pro-life advocates across the country. The truth about what Planned Parenthood and the abortion industrial complex have been doing to women and children and families in this country with taxpayer dollars for decades is outrageous. It's obsolete. It's barbaric. It belongs in the ash heap of history where Roe versus Wade has been consigned to. And I know that myself and every other person of goodwill who believes in life and believes in freedom in this country will not stop until we see the entire abortion industrial complex consigned to the same ash heap of history that Roe versus Wade was this year.
And I know I've looked up to you for many years now with a lot of the work, a lot of the undercover videos that you were doing 5, 7, 8, however many years now back that it's been, those undercover videos that we saw with some of those, I think Planned Parenthood or other abortion clinic workers talking about the cars that they wanted to buy with the money they were making off of, you know, the buying and selling of baby body parts. And like you've said, those videos, there's been a lot of legal action taken by these powerful interests, as you were mentioning. We've seen raids against you. I mean, so much has happened, but you keep speaking truthfully. You keep coming back with more because it's so needed. How do you keep your head up in these moments? How do you stay optimistic when you see really the barbarity of the kind of people that you're going up against?
You know, at the end of the day, I am not the victim here, right? None of us are. We are not the ones who are having our kidneys harvested for taxpayer-funded experiments, right? So that's the first thing. I think we have to put it in perspective. You know, it's important and it's bad to have your home raided, but it's even more important and worse if living human children are being delivered alive at abortion clinics and at university hospitals for trafficking their organs for taxpayer-funded experiments. That's even worse. So we have to put it in perspective, number one. Number two, most people, when they find out, when they learn the facts about these horrific practices, they're outraged and they want it to stop. The vast majority of people do not support the kind of fetal experimentation that's going on at the University of Pittsburgh and elsewhere. And that's why, again, groups like Pitt and Planned Parenthood will go as far as to lie under oath to try to cover it up. So I think it's very important that we continue to report on these issues, that they get elevated, that they get escalated and highlighted to the highest levels of priority for official oversight and investigation. And hopefully we'll see more of that in the coming weeks and months ahead.
No, that's exactly right. And just last question, as we have about a minute here left on the clock, as you were saying. So you have these videos. So what comes next for you guys?
Definitely. Well, this is a story that my team at the Center for Medical Progress is tracking very much in depth. We will have more to report in the coming weeks and months about the University of Pittsburgh, their fetal experimentation, and their partnership with Planned Parenthood, as well as Planned Parenthood's involvement on a national level on these issues across the country. There is more that we will be releasing very soon. And in the meantime, government officials, especially, and people, you know, their constituents, people in Pennsylvania who are watching, who care about these issues, you should escalate this issue to your elected representatives and your government officials in Pennsylvania as the highest priority that you want them to investigate and to seek the truth and seek accountability for what's going on in the abortion industrial complex in Pennsylvania and elsewhere.
Well, David, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and God bless you in your work.